So now that we've actually gone through winter and the weather is a lot nicer, we're finally going to get around to installing our diesel heater and get some heat in the van.
Typical.
So we decided in the end to go with the Lavaner Pro diesel heater. So we got the 5 kilowatt version of that, and it's quite a nice size. It's not too big, not too heavy. What we're going to do is wire this straight in, tap it into the diesel tank underneath the van where I am now. So that should be pretty good, but it does mean we have to drill a giant hole through the van and make sure we get that in the right spot.
So we've been trying to figure out exactly where the heater has to go, and it's dependent on two things. One, underneath the van you've got lots of struts and things like that, so it's got definite sort of squares or rectangles that it can actually fit on. And the other is the layout of the van. So like here, the shower's going to be there, and down the other end is going to be lots of plumbing and things like that. The only place that it would work because of those two elements is somewhere in this region. And then the heater itself is going to be sat on this turret, and that depth there is going to be going through the floor because we've got lots of layers on the floor. And that's why we're not using the one that came with the heater itself, because it just wouldn't really help get through those layers. So yeah, it will go through there, and then the heater will fit in those holes there, and that will mean that we can just drill one big hole rather than lots of little holes.
Are you nervous about this part?
Yeah. Not gonna lie. I think once we have done that, then I'll feel a lot better about the whole thing. Gotta be done.
So Abby's drawn a pretty good diagram of how this is all going to work. So just like some of the other diagrams we've done before, it looks kind of complicated, but it's actually not too bad. Essentially all that's really happening is cold air gets sucked in through this side. There's a little fan on here that's sucking that through, and that gets blown across a really hot heatsink in there, and then by the time it's blown out the other side, it's nice warm dry heat. This part is going to be inside the van, and these bits here, which connects up to the fuel and all that stuff, is going to be outside the van. And crucially, this part is completely separate from this part, so this air is not mixing with this air at all. So it's actually a fairly safe design if installed properly. So on the diagram, this is the cold air coming in, blue arrows, and that's just blown over here and comes out as nice hot air. And then to actually get this hot, there is effectively a chamber in here which has to heat up, and the way it does that is there is a glow plug here which is powered by the 12 volt supply. This gets really hot, red hot, and then the diesel heater will turn on a little fuel pump down here, which then sips a very small amount of diesel from the diesel tank, and this is actually the diesel tank from the van itself, and just sips a small amount of that through this fuel filter here, just to remove any impurities, up through the pump, and then it gets pushed up into this chamber here and mixes with combustion air, which comes in through this one via this air filter, just to stop any bugs and things like that getting in. And that then all mixes up here and effectively ignites and creates kind of like a flamethrower. So this bit gets really hot around the outside, and then the exhaust gases from that combustion come out again down through the floor and out this way through a little silencer, just to make it hopefully not too loud when it's in use. And then to actually make it all work, to power it, there's a little electronics box in here, and that gets a 12 volt supply from our leisure battery. So that is over here, and then it just has a positive and negative wire which connects through a fuse into the diesel heater, and there's actually a little bundle of wires that come out here, so this is where it all connects to. And the only other electronic components are the wires that go down, which we've got to route through the floor to actually power the little fuel pump there, and just a little controller to actually be able to turn on and off the whole thing. And we're actually going to be replacing this with an aftermarket one, which is just a little bit more advanced, gives us a little bit more features. And that's pretty much it.
Got some fishing magnets, one underneath, one on the top. You can actually feel the repelling force there, so we're hoping that that will help us get a bit more accurate sort of placement in there. So yeah, let's go and give it a go.
You're right.
It's so awkward. Not there. Okay, here we go. So I can feel that force field there. That's pretty cool. It's working, Tim.
It looks like you're just randomly waving your hand
It
around.
does. I mean, you can't really tell through a video, but no, you can definitely feel some resistance there.
It's basically about there, isn't it?
Yeah. We also have to have our grey water tank sitting underneath here somewhere. This one that we've bought is going to come up and finish about here. Our bulkhead is sitting about here. So we think this is the only place that it can actually work, and obviously you've got the exhaust and stuff from that from the van here. I mean, it's such a massive van, you'd think that, you know, you could put it anywhere, but you really have to be quite careful.
We need to have enough clearance out the back here for the air intake coming in there. And yeah, that's not bad though, is it?
No. So here we go.
This feels so wrong.
It does really feel really wrong. Right, am I straight?
We have a hole. I think it needs to go slightly further towards the back of the van to miss this little lip here. Good job we did a pilot hole, I think.
Here comes the big one. Okay. You'll go next.
Finally!
Oh my god. Hello. Wow. That took an incredibly long time. There we go.
It looks so simple now, but that was quite stressful kind of hole, I think, wasn't
It
it?
wasn't very fun.
Instead of a heater, it could just be a nice cool ventilation hole.
I don't need any more cold air, thanks.
There is this kind of gap here, and we want this to be fully sealed so that no moisture can get in. Ooh, definitely expanding. Probably leave that until tomorrow before we trim that back. So the next thing we're probably going to do is try and figure out how we're actually going to drop the diesel tank. Could be interesting.
I don't want to.
We've waited until it's got basically no fuel in it, pretty much. I mean, the fuel light's been on for a long time, so it should be quite light.
Here comes Tim, very awkwardly.
So there's a few different straps on here, and we've just been playing around with the different sockets, and it looks like the 1/2 inch one is the best fit. Yeah, we'll take all of these out and then drop it and just prop it up on something around here. Might need to build up a few layers.
Okay.
Got the tank down. Took a little bit of effort, didn't it, Abby? I mean, it's really simple. There's literally just 6 bolts. It's just that some of them are a bit awkward to get to. Right, now we've got to actually lower it a bit more because we need to get access to the top. So hopefully we can just pull out, like, it's a bit like a Jenga.
Some of these layers.
Pull out a few bits.
It's now balancing on this one in the middle.
There we go.
Okay. And now we can see just over there, that little white thing sticking up is the auxiliary fuel port, and that's where we're going to be tapping in with our line to then go up to the heater.
So to actually tap into the diesel tank, we picked up a kit from Eberspacher. So that's not the make of our diesel heater, but the kit is for our van, so hopefully it should work the same. Basically, we've got this little piece, which is the drinking straw, that's what it's called, and that's literally going to sit in the tank and drink up diesel. This little bit clips onto the top of the tank, and then we just have to connect it to the fuel hose, little fuel line, which will then ultimately connect to the pump from our diesel heater. The only thing we have to get right is we have to cut off a quite precise bit from the top of that dome on the auxiliary port.
Oh,
Well done.
oh my goodness. Hopefully that's in the right place. It's only one time I can do that.
How did that go then, Abby?
Oh, it's so stressful.
I've got the easy bit. All I have to do is put in the drinking straw. It should, hopefully. There we go. Drop that in there. There we go. Nice.
Cool.
I think I lucked out on the easy job. It's one fuel line made up. Okay, all we have to do now is put the tank back up. And all the other bits, obviously. Now it's a new day and the foam has expanded quite nicely. It's kind of like you're slicing through meringue.
Yeah.
So we spent some time having a think about how we're going to seal these edges. We want to seal them because we don't want any moisture getting in, because this is exposed obviously now outside. Even though we're going to put a bit of sealant, we just want belt and braces to make sure nothing goes in. So this is a 2-part epoxy, and this one is fully waterproof when it's cured and also has quite high temperature resistance, so it can withstand up to 287 degrees C. And when the turret's in there, it should no way be getting up to that kind of temperatures anyway. Like painting metal. Okay, here goes. Might take a little while.
I think you might need quite a bit of this stuff.
Yeah.
Are you alright down there? That doesn't look that comfortable.
Almost looks like it's just like we've cut a hole through a solid piece of metal now. So that's gone pretty hard, and quite happy with how it's turned out. It's a little bit more snug, but it still goes in, so that's good. So there are some German manufacturers you can get, like the Eberspacher and the Webasto are the main ones, but they're quite expensive. And then you've also got some really, really cheap Chinese ones that are under £100 for some of them. This is kind of Chinese one, but slightly better than the rest, is how I would describe it. And they make 2 versions as well, so they've got the standard and the Pro. We went with the Pro, which basically just has slightly better components, slightly better glow plug apparently. Open this up. Things like the electronics in there is in a nice box, give it a bit of protection, and also the connections into there are theoretically waterproof as well, so that's pretty good. So we spent some time under the van. It's a little bit awkward trying to figure out where we're going to put the pump and the filter. We've just used a couple of scrap bits of wood. So we put the filter mounted on there and the pump mounted just there, because we want this to be at a slight angle going up into the hole. So we've got the tank, it's under the van, and the fuel line from that one is going to come into here in this filter. These things are directional, so there's an arrow on there, so then it'll go this way. It has to fill up this whole filter first, so it's actually quite a bit of diesel that has to go into there before it comes through. And then this comes back around and it's going to go into the pump just in there. And again, the pump's directional, and there's an arrow going this way. And then it will go through the pump and then through this fuel line, which we haven't cut to the right size yet, and up into the heater. This one on the outside is just for protection. And we've done that just because this is going to be under the van, so we just thought if there's rocks and things flicking up when we're driving, we don't want it to be damaging the fuel line. And we'll do the same for the electrical one coming through and put it in a conduit. And also you want to make sure that the Jubilee clips on here are tightened up nicely and that there's no gap between the tube and the end of the thing that you're connecting it to. So the way this pump works is it's got a little piston inside. Every time this piston goes up and down, it creates an air bubble. So there will be bubbles coming along the line, which is normal. To not have them get stuck, you don't mount the pump horizontally, because if you do that, they can start to form bigger bubbles in the pump and stop it working properly. And also the fuel line that you use should be a small bore, so basically a thin hole, and a hard nylon tube, which allows the bubbles to just kind of travel along. And every time it goes backwards and forwards, it pushes out a very metered quantity of fuel. So from what we've seen, it's exactly 0.02 millilitres. So it actually takes 250 strokes of this just to fill even a teaspoon. That's not the tool I thought we were going to use to install the diesel heater.
Last time we were under the van, my neck ached so much the next day that I'm getting my pretty cushions out. And I don't care.
So we have just added some cable ties. I just clipped in the fuel line, going all the way around and over to the tank. We didn't want to drill into the van if we could help it.
Now we've got to somehow get the wire to power the pump that's mounted on the side of the van there underneath the floor. So what we might do is drill a hole in the turret, cut the wire for the power for the pump, thread it through, and then just splice it together.
Coming through pretty nicely. Looks like you're constructing a mutant alien. We've got those in there, so we've got the air intake and the exhaust. The trickiest part is just it's so fiddly trying to get in there and work with it. The exhaust pipe is quite nice, rugged, pretty strong, but the air pipe is actually really quite compressible. This is just from how it was shipped to us, which is obviously not ideal because you really want this to be really unrestricted flow. So we possibly at some point in the future might upgrade that, maybe even put another one of these pipes on, but for now we're just got to try and get in and just fix this bend in there. Just push that out. There you go. What we need to do now is add a filter onto the air intake because you don't want bugs and things to be able to get in here and then go into the heater and mess it up. So we're just going to put that on there and just secure that. There's a little Jubilee clip on there. Okay, there we go.
What are you doing? So it was a little bit tough, but we managed to get the end off the exhaust, and that would allow us now to be able to get the silencer on there. And the position of the silencer is quite important. You want this little hole here to be pointing down to the ground, just to let any water that's collected to escape out that hole. Push that all the way to the bottom. One dangly thingy. Ready to go. Ooh.
So the last thing we've got to do before we actually put it into the hole is just add some sealant. And what we've gone for is some of this heat-mate, heat-resistant sealant. So this is good up to 300 degrees C, even though it shouldn't get anywhere near that temperature. We just felt like something that gets reasonably hot makes sense to use something that's heat-resistant. We've never installed a diesel heater before, so obviously this is just all of our own research, what we've done on the internet and things like that. So yeah, hopefully this is all going to be good and it's going to work first time, and we're not going to have to take it out again once we've put this on. There it goes. We wait for this moment. Don't drop it. Whoa.
Careful.
Okay, it's gone through. Did almost drop it there. Is that everything?
I think so.
Okay.
Alright.
Is that a good spot?
I guess
do
so.
that?
Happy?
I will be if it works. So Abby's got the really awkward job of trying to put the sealant on the underside.
Yeah, why did I end up sitting here?
like you've got the technique down.
Questionable. So hopefully that should close up any gaps so that none of the exhaust air can make its way back into the van. Another job.
And just clicks on. There you go.
It's looking very neat.
And we want it pointing the exhaust out the back of the van as far away as we can get it from the air intake. So combustion air is going to come in here and then the exhaust come out there, and we obviously don't want the two mixing, so it should be pretty good. And you don't want this pipe to be too long either. There's like a formula you can use actually to how many bends you can have in this, and just a few turns, so it will be too many. So we've decided to keep it just really short, no extensions or anything, and just really simple. Definitely need a lot of cable ties to do this job.
Yes.
So I think that is everything apart from this last section. We could turn it on and have it just suck all of the diesel all the way from the tank, but it'd be running dry for the first part of that. So we thought what we would do is just prime it manually, which basically means we have to just try and drink some diesel out of our fuel tank. Yeah, don't try this at home, and hopefully this will work. It's going to take a while, I think.
I've given up already.
Okay, I think I will stop about there before I actually end up drinking it.
Or passing out.
Yeah. All we need to do now is actually just plug it in at the top.
Well, and connect that fuel.
Oh yeah. Probably
not much good without that.
Yeah. There's the last screw in.
We've already run some wiring for the heater, and that's 6mm squared cables.
Okay, we are finally ready to actually test whether it's going to work. This is quite exciting. We've got to just plug in the loom fuse in line in there. We need the controller, and then the only thing left to do now is actually turn on the power in the van. Ooh, it is lit up. Look at that. I guess I should just press that button.
I suppose.
Oh,
Oh, I had something.
it is on. The fan is going. So we've got a temperature on there. So that's the fuel pump frequency. The current it's pulling at the moment is 7.7 amps, and the fuel pump has just started ticking now. So we've got at the moment 19 degrees, which is not far off what the temperature is today, so it's still fairly cool. Now it says on.
Ooh.
Do we get some heat coming out soon? It's like a science experiment. So the fuel is now making its way out of the filter and up the fuel line. See if we're going to get up to a nice sauna up there. Oh, here we go, look, it's doing something. So,
It's louder.
also says error 10. Okay, right.
Interesting.
See what that means. Check for oil flow blockages or a stuck pump. Okay, so we turned it off and turned it on again just to allow it to prime, because we're pretty sure it was right up. Fuel almost got into the heater, and now this time is actually coming out warm already. So you can see it's 26 degrees now. It's going up fairly steadily actually.
Oh yeah.
29.
Nice.
30.
Woohoo!
It's
Sounds like we're about to take off.
Hopefully it'll settle down and not be so loud in a minute. So it's been running for about 10 minutes now. It's quieted right down, which is good. And it's on the lowest speed. It's gone right down to 0.8 amps, or about 10 watts. One of the number one things you want to make sure you do is have a carbon monoxide alarm. It's showing 0 parts per million at the moment, which is good. If the diesel heater is installed correctly, it's quite clean combustion, really.
Okay.
Alright, let's see how long it takes you not to need your jacket.
Yeah.
It is showing 16.25 inside, just up there, that little thermometer in the corner. Let's crank up the heat.
That's the highest. 5.5. 65. 63, 64, 66. It's about time, Tim.
It's nice and warm.
You can do it.
You realise that could have been the last time you actually wear a jacket when you're working in the van. How does that feel?
It's so nice. Look, 100 degrees.
100 degrees! We've had it on for a little while now, just checking to make sure everything's okay. It's currently 28.3 degrees at the back of the van and only 13.6 outside, so it's definitely
Definitely
pretty
works.
hot. Yeah. I think we should turn it off now.
Yeah.
So it's really important when you turn off the heater that you don't just kill the power, because it needs to do a rundown cycle just to burn off any last bits of fuel and excess carbon that might be in there, which is why we don't actually have a switch for the heater in the wire anywhere. Hold it down on there and then now it'll do its thing. What we're actually going to do now is replace the controller. We've bought something called the Afterburner, which is from a guy in Australia called Ray, and he custom makes these for the Chinese diesel heaters. This one has a few extra things like Wi-Fi control, Bluetooth control, more advanced timers and things like that. I can turn it on with my phone, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
So I can just do that, and then there we go, turns on. And then also gives you quite nice messages of what's happening at each point. And it's got a temperature sensor as well. So we'll put this somewhere and it can monitor the ambient temperature, so we can have it so it triggers when it gets too cold. So when it gets below temperature, a certain threshold, it'll come on, and then when it gets to a higher temperature, it'll turn off again. Very cool. Or hot. Obviously it's not going to be like this out in the open. It will be boxed in and the vents and everything will be installed.
Oh, that's so nice.
You could lie down and use it as a hairdryer.
You could. Take quite a long time, but you
Nice
know,
dry
there's a
heat.
backup.